and welcome to a brand new episode of Trashtalk on Attack Vector Tactical, a show where I talk about the various ships and vessels you will be commanding in a game of Attack Vector Tactical. In today's episode, Olympus Class Multi-Role Frigate. In its early history, the Olympian Republic's space defense strategy emulated a hedgehog, presenting a bristling defense of numerous smaller ships to wear down an invader. Altiplano's year of no ships of 2187 demonstrated the potential opportunities and difficulties of naval blockade. Olympian analysis indicated needs for ships capable of breaking through a blockade to ask for help from the outside and for ships capable of conducting commerce interdiction operations. The Hermes class initially provided a handful of frigates for this role. However, their impending retirement, combined with the concurrent elimination of the Athena-class frigates and rising tensions in the Ten Worlds, resulted in the design of the Olympus class of frigates. High transit endurance gives the Olympus class excellent operational range, permitting it to work for openings in enemy blockade patterns, or to hunt down and destroy enemy commercial shipping. Weighing 5,575 tons, the Olympus is one of the many warships developed after the cease of any contact from Earth. While the previous two entries represent the height of warship technology, Olympus represents what can still be made after the loss of the major technological base from Earth, and frankly, it wasn't pretty. The Olympus is a frigate-rated vessel, but its Libel fusion torch can only put it to a max thrust of 0.75 g acceleration or 3.5 at half fuel, and while it has an ample tactical delta V of 19.09 km per second or 122 fuel unit, fuel is the least of your worry with an acceleration this bad. It thankfully still has 3 Epstein beta reactors for a decent 187.5 MW of power, or 3 per segment, and 16 Okuda sodium heat sinks will let the vessel run for 5.33 turns at max power, a decent length of endurance, plus with 13 Semper Paratus batteries for 26 GJ of energy storage, it will just be enough for the main battery, if only just barely. In combat, the Olympus class is schizophrenic. On the one hand, its battery of 3 coil guns equals the Kuan Yin's primary coil gun battery in weight and velocity of fire, with the 4 large missiles providing significant saturation capability. 6 particle beam zone defense systems provide the Olympus class with the ability to weather most seeking threats, a capability necessitated by its low thrust rating of only 0.75 g. The Olympus class is otherwise well provisioned with reactors, heat sinks, and batteries for a long battle. Paradoxically, the Olympus class lacks the drum magazines necessary for an extended coilgun engagement. The missiles are likewise one-shot weapons. Moreover, while most of the design is focused on long-range combat, an enemy closing with an Olympus-class ship will find itself under the punishing fire of a battery of 3 2400 nanometers lasers. As a result, the class needs to either close the range and deliver a kill with the 2400 nanometers battery or be in a position to disengage when its ammunition runs out. The Olympus is armed with an array of weapons, primarily seekers, which it will need due to its sluggish acceleration. It has 3 Pembroke 3-5C 2.53 meters laser, 3 Radiant Dynamic Snapper 3-2 coil guns, 4 Whitworth heavy missile tubes, and 6 Spenvis G3A zone defense particle beams. This can be translated to 3 Class 3 SRLS, 3 Class 3 100 kg coil guns, 4 big missile launcher, and 6 ZDPB. That sounds like a lot of firepower, and it is plenty of firepower when compared to the Kinetic. But unfortunately, the Olympus will not be able to use them well. Direct fire armaments on the Olympus consist of the Class 3 short-range laser system and the coil guns. These have a rather wide arc and can aim somewhat to the sides and top arc too, a useful aspect for when you inevitably get outmaneuvered. While the SRLS is here to provide a hard-hitting 78 damage punch with an average of 60 within 5 hex, which is rather hard to reach with the Olympus with its low thrust, the Class 3 coil guns on the other hand is actually capable of touching distant foes. Not only is it a Class 3, which means the projectile will be traveling at an impressive 3.75 km per second, it also launches 2 100 kg slugs this time, each dealing 19 damage on a standstill, and you can fire 6 of them per full barrage for a combined total of 114 damage on a standstill, per segment. The problem, however, is everything else. 1. While the higher muzzle velocity lets you reach out to foe even at vector that is essentially untouchable with a Class 2 coil gun, the lower projectile count means that enemy has easier time intercepting them with their zone defense. A 100 kg slug does have an 8 hardening over a 50 kg slug from sheer mass, but that can only help so much. 2. Each coil gun now eats up 3 energy to fire. Double kinetic energy means double consumption. If you do hit the enemy, good, but it also means your foe can spend a lot more energy budget onto zone defense and most likely still comes out on top. So firing the coil guns at a bad trajectory or at a distance without thought is simply a bad investment. And 3, these impressive coil guns are not paired with drum magazine, meaning you only have an internal capacity of 12 salvos to rely on, and when it gets empty, you have to shut down the entire mount, not the weapon alone, the entire mount for a full turn before you could spend even more time reloading the guns using your damage control team. Damage control team, you need to keep your ship systems functional while you are getting pounded. So to summarize it so far, Olympus is a slow as molasses ship with short range laser that it can barely use, and huge caliber coil guns that will not last in an extended engagement, nor has the saturation capacity on its own to serve as maneuver constraint against its opponent. This would not be a problem if the Olympus has some mid-range laser to poke out, but that's a problem this ship is stuck with. You need something else, you need solution, big solution. Enter the big missiles. The big missile launchers are exactly what you think, a launcher that holds one singular big missile to be fired at your foe and nothing else, and the Olympus has 4 of them. Don't get too excited yet, as Olympus has that many because it needs that many. While the firing arc of the side-mounted big missiles look like this, they can actually be diverted and launched 3 spaces from the edges of the arc too, so you can in fact launch all 4 big missiles at once towards an enemy, though you probably don't want to do that, as the big missile already suffers from the all eggs in one basket problem on its own. Yes, if the big missile managed to launch its submunition payload before getting zapped by laser and other zone defense instruments, if the target couldn't avoid or shoot down its payload in time, it's payday for you, because good God, that's a lot of damage, often battle-deciding level of damage, that is, again, if you do hit. A missile in acceleration is particularly vulnerable, 3 levels of it in fact, so just about anything touching it will cause it to explode, which is why you should launch missile weapons at a distance. Distance is safety, but even that is not enough sometimes. Something like a Class 4 medium-range laser, which a certain ship has 6 of, which is complete bollocks, can just touch your big missile all the way to 40 hex and explode it. The standard map size is 50 to 50. Even the Babers, which only has 2 of these, will be a massive pain to the Olympus, or any other big missile-equipped ship really. You can only fire a big missile launcher once, and unless you have more reload in your cargo bay, which will take forever to reload anyway, your enemy will know that's all they need to deal with, so they will put their everything into stopping that missile. But now that you know its limitation, let's talk about what the big missiles can do. Unsurprisingly, the big missile has big capacity, giving you plenty of options. Low burn missile with enough payload to block out the shell star, long burn missile that is tricky to deploy but if they do hit, it's game over, and sprint missile that might actually be possible to be launched at short range to surprise sucker punch your foes as they only burn for one segment. And if you are feeling exotic, you could even go for EMP generators to burn out enemies' sensor, or nuclear warheads to burn out more than just that, though that might carry political consequences too. But if you are following the historical setting more, your option for mass-produced missiles is consisted of these. The Hydra is your standard high-saturation low-burn missile, the Viper is a long-burn high-velocity missile, and the other 3 came up at later timeline, the Vulcan, which is just a singular kinetic penetrator with rocket attached to it, the Helios, which is the special sauce EMP missiles, and the Eumaeon, which is more a longer burn update of the Hydra with denser warhead. So how does the big missiles prove its worth on the Olympus? Simple, the SRLS has no range, the coil guns can't provide enough saturation on its own, so the big missile is here to supplement it. The general tactic here is simple: you burn towards your foe, fire 1 or 2 missiles, then time it right to fire your coil gun so the projectile will reach the target in nearly the same time, then hope something will hit your foes hard, add in cheeky SRLS barrage if you can, then use the velocity to escape your foe before making another pass again, with reload in between the passes if you can. In general, this is how Seeker ship works. You want to achieve high speed so your projectiles will reach the target faster and hit them harder, but Olympus, more than anything else, rely on making passes to stay alive, as it will not be able to escape if it get caught by its foes. 3 max thrust is just pain. You also have a lot of fuel, use them. In some matches, you might not even have enough point budget to spend on 4 missiles, which can create a rather interesting strategy. Just because you know you have 3 missiles in your 4 launchers, doesn't mean the enemy do. Sometimes, a loaded gun is more threatening than a missile in motion. Getting the enemy to be ready to intercept a missile that cannot be fired might worth more than actually firing it. Of course, you might also wonder, if Olympus' primary strategy is making high-speed passes, won't that make it especially vulnerable to maneuver constraint? That is true, which is where the last armament of the Olympus comes in, the 6-zone defense particle beam, which are concentrated around its front and sides in a rather small arc, rather than a laser system that can split or concentrate onto incoming projectiles. The ZDPB shoots a massive wave of radiation in a general direction and call it a day. When a ZDPB imposes zone defense point, it apply onto every zone of a shell star on every projectile at once. This makes it incredibly powerful at slapping an entire wave of projectiles down at once, while any hardened payload will most likely go straight through it, ironically making the Olympus well equipped to withstand the exact kind of threat it will inflict onto its opponent. This makes Olympus quite resilient to waves of 50 kg seeker from coil guns or launchers, but each activation of ZDPB takes 1 energy, double that of ZDLS, and hardened projectiles might just go straight through it unimpeded. You can't protect against everything, but against most form of maneuver constraints and mass saturation attacks, the Olympus is well equipped to deal with them. The Olympus class has performed well in combat, most recently in the 12-hour War of 2258. Pedro Claus severely damaged the more modern Presidente Almodovar of Novo Brazil when the range closed. Although the design has been largely superseded by the Wasp class of fast attack destroyers, ODFSA analysts are campaigning for a better patrol vessel than the Wasp class. Nonetheless, the Olympus class ships currently online are not expected to receive further refits, and, as the structural lifetimes of the hulls come due, new Wasp hulls are expected to replace retiring Olympus class frigates. In terms of armoring, the Olympus is definitely vastly more adequate than the Kinetic when it comes to deflecting most lightweight threat off its hull, 7-5 on the front, 4-3-1 at the sides as it stretches to the rear, but its internal armoring is less so, though that's a more universal standard compared to the higher than usual internal armoring of nations' Federes ships, so if things get through, it's gonna knock around in there a lot longer. But in terms of defense in other areas, the Olympus has problems, plural. The ZDPB array only really covers the front and sides, meaning Olympus is extremely vulnerable to seeker attack from any other angle, and second, it all comes back to its unfavorable max thrust. To avoid incoming seekers at 90-degree angle, the Olympus has to burn for 3 segments to avoid the center square because its fusion torch will not do anything on the first segment. Going from 4 to 3 thrust doesn't just mean you accelerate a quarter slower, it means any sort of quick maneuver is now impossible. It is in fact that bloody awful. Funny enough though, the Olympus may have bad thrust, but it uses the pivot H-table to turn, which does let it almost turn on a dime. This is one of the few things the Olympus is good at, and maybe too good. Here's a new mechanic in AVT I will introduce to you right now. It's called thrust break, which is when the thrust chart get reset back to the top again. This happens when you finish thrusting, reaching the bottom of the chart, or finishing a pivot. Meaning, if you stop pivoting at the wrong time while thrusting, you could cancel your thrust and reset it back to square one again, which means you are not burning for a new vector for 2 whole segments, and that can potentially be a game-ruining moment. I'm warning you of this because this can be really upsetting after making a multi-segment plan only to fall flat on your face. The Olympus also possesses only 1 flex point. All those crazy things the Kinetic and Laffy can do, the Olympus can't. You just can't. The Olympus is really not a bad ship, it's just mediocre. And primarily, that's because of what it was designed for. The Olympus has a 50 weeks cruise endurance, which is insanely long to say the least, and that's because it's designed to probe enemy line for weak point to break through, and then go commerce raiding for a long time, much like the Age of Sail era AVT likes to mimic so much. The Olympus also has 2 magazine cargo slot, each can be used to store 96 coilgun salvos or 2 big missiles, and since the coilgun has no drum mag, you can really only store 2 more missiles if you intend to use the coilgun for longer than a single engagement, which means, an Olympus can reasonably carry up to 6 big missiles, and that can potentially translate to 6 downed commerce freighters. It might take a full complement to take down a warship, but against a civilian vessel with no point defense, you need far less. On its own, the Olympus is a terrible duelist. It has to fight with high-speed passes or it will get kited by more maneuverable foes, and if it runs out of missiles while its opponent is still quite functional, it's dead in the water. Most of its armaments, which it has an impressive amount of, simply don't work with each other. It's a ship design that's fighting against itself. But in a fleet battle, the Olympus tells a different story. Suddenly, it becomes a force multiplier. Hitting with big missiles is easy when your opponent is busy with your allies, and the 100 kg salvos can be added to 50 kg waves brought in by your allies, adding to the saturation and surprising your foes when their armor suddenly get perforated by the heavy slugs. It actually gets quite terrifying. And if you do manage to find foes as slow as you, or if you get lucky hits on propulsion, suddenly, your foe will quickly realize how terrible those heavy coil guns can be. And that's basically it on the Olympus Class Multi-Role Frigate, a frigate bristling with guns that don't really work with each other and has a very unfavorable thrust-to-weight ratio. That's all for now, and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe and click that notification bell button. If you want to see the videos early as well as further support my channel, you can join in my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.